Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all doing well. We're back with the Karen Reid retrial today. A recap of day 14. And it was a day all about Massachusetts State Police Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik. I am so glad that they stayed longer than 4 p.m. to get this guy done, because I didn't want to have another day of looking at his ugly mug. And look, the selective memory problems that this guy has, I'm sure there must be a treatment for it or something. It's just ridiculous. But it's strange because whenever Hank Brennan is doing the questioning, he remembers everything just fine. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Well, we're going to go through a few bits and pieces from yesterday. I'm going to focus more on the kind of afternoon session. The morning was more cross-examination, and the afternoon got interesting though. And the redirect and then the recross. That was really interesting because Hank Brennan managed to sneak in a few little pieces of evidence all about the goddamn tail light. Jeez. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Hello, CW. Queen of Ravens, Bay, you babe. Truth for us. Little Bear Paws, The Quiet Observer, Two Arctic Wolves, Angie Baby. Oh, that's it. I'm down the bottom of the chat. Down the bottom of the chat. Oh, Sharon. Hello, hello, hello. All right, let's get this show on the road. So I'm starting us at 3 minutes and 8 seconds. And this is the videos. I'm concentrating on the videos because the videos are interesting. And this is Brian Higgins. He's my number one suspect, is Brian Higgins. He absolutely is my number one suspect. I think with the knowledge of Brian Albert, the knowledge of Nicole Albert, Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, and probably a few more who know exactly what happened. And then the rest of them, the rest of whoever, the cover-up, the conspiracy, they're Brian Albert's friends. Okay, and it's gone too far. They didn't realise it was going to go this far. When Proctor sent that group message to everyone saying that he hates David Yannetti, I think that was probably heartfelt. Because at that point, they were probably realising that they were all in over their heads, that this had gone too far and they can't back away now. So we're starting us here, and we're going to watch Brian Higgins go to the Canton Police Department. Right, so remember that Brian Higgins had been to a funeral that day in New York, a fallen colleague from New York. So him and Brian Albert had been to New York. They'd driven back to Massachusetts. They'd gone out. So they'd gone out for the whole evening. Brian Higgins went back to 34 Fairview, was the first there. So absolutely keen, very keen to get there. Texted John O'Keefe when John O'Keefe was on his way there saying, "Are you here yet?" or whatever. And then, by 27 minutes past 1, so just an hour later, he was at the Canton Police Department. Supposedly, he said moving cars, but it's very odd that you do that having had a really long day, that you go back to work to start moving cars. And he wasn't. He was in and out of cars doing, I don't know what he was doing. Don't know what he was doing. Thought he went to move cars for the plough to come through. Didn't see it. No, he didn't. He was just messing around. But let's just watch a little bit of this video.
Be published for the jurors.
All right, so there are 4 videos on this flash drive?
One video, 4 different camera angles as it's set from the one video.
Are you ready to see this now? I thought you wanted to review it.
I'll agree, and if I have a problem, I'll input it. No problem.
All right, so for the first one, the first camera angle?
Correct.
Okay.
It's one video, but 4 different angles.
All right, we just have to keep a record. That's why I'm
Understood.
asking all these
It's a little
questions.
complicated. I get it.
All right, we can do that.
Thank you. And this is, Your Honor, just for the record, actually, let me do it this way. Sergeant, would you agree that we can call this the rear lot main side at Canton PD, just for identification purposes?
All right, we're gonna flick through.
Sure, if you'd like.
We're not gonna watch them in their entirety. So this is a parking lot. This is Brian Higgins arriving. Okay, and we see him. I hate doing it like this on the computer. You can't flick through too well. Here he comes. And that's him. Now, Bukhenik says that he doesn't really know who this is, but based on the fact that he can identify Brian Higgins' vehicle, a white truck with a plough on the front, pretty distinctive, and this guy gets out and back in this truck, then we can assume that this is Brian Higgins. And this is about 127. So you see him on various camera angles. That's the Sallyport. He walks by the Sallyport. So this is what they're talking about, that there's 4 different camera angles. So goes into, I assume that that's his office or a office. Can't quite read that, whatever that says, but he's in there a few minutes. This camera seems to be motion activated because it jumps about 6 minutes from 128. By the time he gets in the building, it's 128. He's in this room about 6 minutes. So whatever he's doing, no idea. Comes out at 134. And then he goes back into the parking lot and starts messing around in and out of a bunch of vehicles. Was he hiding items? I don't think so, because he doesn't appear to have anything, or at least anything obvious on him. And everything that John O'Keefe had was with John O'Keefe, or found near where John O'Keefe's body was found. So what items would there be that he was hiding? Maybe if you think that he maybe was hit over the head with a dumbbell, maybe that, but why would you take it to work? I mean, that's Chris Watts style stupidity. If you're taking evidence of a crime away from a scene, you don't take it to work, especially if you work in a police department. Then again, this is Canton, so, you know, they don't bother investigating anything anyway. So maybe you thought this was the safest place. So I don't know. I don't know whether he was actually there to hide anything. I think in the first trial, it was speculated that he was there to monitor stuff. So he's just killing time. And he's there to monitor, to see. I don't know. I don't know why he was there. I don't know why he was there. But we see him leaving. There he is. He's leaving now. And then there's a 10-minute video. And you can see him kind of in and out of various vehicles over this 10-minute period. It is snowing, reasonably heavy now. So this is 1:30, just after. So I would imagine that there's a little bit more snow on the ground than tracking a cat stage. Tracking a cat stage to me is just a light dusting. So there is some snow coming down, but I don't think it's heavy snow. It's not whiteout conditions, regardless of what they were saying on on rebuttal. So look, I don't know why he went there. I honestly don't know why he went there. Now, I'm assuming that's the only video they have. So there's 4 different camera angles. You've got 2 different angles in the parking lot. You've got indoor, and then you've got the Sallyport. Okay, moving us on, because it's not interesting other than it's a curiosity. Like, what was he doing there? Because he certainly wasn't there to do what he said he was going to do. It doesn't appear that way anyway, unless he did all of that out of the view of the camera. And I don't know. I just don't know. All right, 4 hours and 53. We're going to the Sallyport now. The famous Sallyport video. Now, this was one of the most controversial aspects of Trial 1, and rightly so, because this is inverted. And this was played, like Trial 1, this was played to the jury. And then I think it was the day after, it all came out that this video was inverted. That it's like all twisted. So these cars are actually facing the other way. So when they uninverted the camera, you can see Michael Proctor at the right-hand rear messing with Karen's vehicle, exactly where the broken taillight was. So Bukhenik didn't know who this was. So Proctor's over here. This person is a smaller person than Proctor, but he doesn't know who that was. But they were also there. Now, the biggest piece of, in my opinion, if I was a juror and I was leaning towards Karen Reid's innocent, the biggest sticking point for me would be those first few taillight pieces that were found and John O'Keefe's shoe. Those things, how could they have planted those? Now, perhaps John O'Keefe's shoe came off kind of naturally, i.e. wasn't planted when they dragged his body. I'm going to talk about that next. Because it strongly looks like, in my opinion, that his body was dragged. So maybe when his body was dragged, his shoe came off. But there was a handful, about 6 small taillight pieces that were found that first day. And they were found, according to, who was it? Officer Connor Keefe. He testified that they were found around 4:45 to 4:50. Now, this Lexus, Karen's Lexus, arrived in the Sallyport at 5:35. So Proctor had gone to Dighton, where Karen's parents lived and where Karen was staying. And Karen's parents had driven this Lexus back to Dighton. So they had to go and pick the Lexus up from Dighton. So they drove it from Dighton to Canton Sallyport and arrived here at 4:35. Now, Canton PD is only a mile, a shade over a mile from 34 Fairview. So it's perfectly possible that somebody could have broke off a handful of taillight pieces or just collected some loose pieces and taken them to 34 Fairview and just dropped them. But as a juror, if I was a juror, I would say that's pretty brazen to do. I'd struggle to believe that if I was a juror. I could easily believe that the other taillight pieces that were found later, and this thing about, they were at ground level, they were all found at ground level as the snow melted is absolutely ridiculous, because as the snow melts, of course, they're going to go to ground level. I mean, I can't, surely the jurors would work that out. That if Proctor or Brian Albert or whoever else went and planted the rest of the taillight piece, like 40 pieces of taillight, they wouldn't have to bury them, because as the snow melted, those taillight pieces would fall through the snow as it was melting, and they would be found at ground level. It doesn't mean to say that they were at ground level the whole time. It just means that as the snow's melting, they're going to be heavier than the melting snow, and they're going to fall through. And then when the snow totally recedes, then there you go. These are the taillight pieces. Like, as the snow's melting, they're not going to, like, there's nowhere else for them to go than downwards. It's called gravity. But those first few that were found, I would struggle if I was a juror to think, all right, there's enough time, like, 4:35, and then taillight pieces found at Fairview at 4:50, let's say, unless what kind of Keith testified to is wrong, and the taillight pieces were actually found later, like later than 4:50. But there's only just enough time, and as there was a bunch of people there who wouldn't be in on this thing, it's a pretty brazen act to do. So that would be my sticking point if I was a juror. I'm just kind of making that known. So anyway, this is the right way around. This is the right way around. So Michael Proctor was over here messing around. And then there's another view from the Sallyport from the other direction, like looking directly on to the right-hand corner, right, like the camera's like right on the tail light. You would easily see on that camera if somebody was messing with it. But oh no, during the time that Michael Proctor would have done his dirty deed, oh, that camera somehow wasn't working. It was working before and it was working after, but there's a gap. Oh no, there's a gap. And where is it? I've got to find the spot. Here we go. Here we go.
Do you see what's depicted? I know the photograph that you're holding is very poor quality. It's a little easier with this lighting. Do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
I'm sorry, your laser was bouncing off from the ceiling. I
I'm trying to
apologize.
make it easier for you.
Yeah.
This photograph here.
That appears to be the seized SUV belonging to the defendant, with it being situated inside the Sallyport.
And what is that vehicle there?
It's an antique police cruiser.
And who is this person?
I do not know who that is.
Does that look like Michael Proctor?
Don't know. I'd have to get a zoom in. I don't know.
Does he have glasses on?
I don't know.
I think that's Proctor.
It could be Chief Berkowitz. I don't know.
Oh, could be Chief Berkowitz. Could be. Could be Chief Berkowitz.
Can you tell me the date that's on the the date and timestamp at the bottom?
I cannot. I think I might be able to make it out in the actual photograph you printed out. Could I take a look at that?
Sure.
Need the light?
Yes,
I
please, Your Honor.
can't make that out.
It appears the time is 11:08 and 59 seconds in the morning of possibly January 30th of 2022.
Okay. Let's go ahead and pull this back out full frame.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, do you have a point of reference? Does that appear to be the interior camera facing the other direction where the SUV was depicted in the Sallyport earlier?
It's the opposite of what we had viewed earlier,
Okay.
diagonally across, I believe.
So this would be the right rear of the vehicle, correct?
That is correct.
Now I'd like to ask you to take a look at a video. Now that we have that point of reference, you want to have a final video?
So if this video was working at the key time, you would have seen exactly what went on. So it's just very convenient that at that key time, that camera wasn't working. There's so much crap. How can anybody believe these people?
Next in order, Your Honor.
As next in order, so there's no objection, Mr. Brennan?
I have no objection to that being entered now.
Exhibit 121.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, could we
Yes.
present this? Go ahead and play it. Pause. Can you make out, now that that's paused, can you make out what's depicted toward the top of the screen?
Yes, it appears to be a distorted image of that antique police cruiser.
Okay. And does the area next to the police cruiser appear to be empty? Some snow on the ground?
Yes, it does. Actually, yes, it does look that way. Yes.
Okay. So there's nothing next to the police cruiser, at least at this point, correct?
That's what it appears to be. Yes.
Can we take a look at the timestamp on this document or on this frame? I'd ask you to let the jurors know if you can see what the actual runtime is on this.
I could see the timestamp. I don't know the runtime, what it's going to be.
It's 5:07:10 or 12, something like that.
That's the
5:07.
timestamp. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. PM.
Now, if we could just play this forward, go back to full screen.
I said 4:50 before, didn't I? It was 5:35, and 5:50.
And in Massachusetts, testimony resumes at
What the hell? What the hell?
I believe
So this would be the right rear of the vehicle, correct?
that is correct.
Now I'd like to ask you to take.
That's the timestamp. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. PM.
Now, if we could just play this forward, go back to full screen. Pause. Now, how many seconds would you estimate, just in your head, just went by in real time?
Approximately 5 seconds.
Okay. Do you see something in the video now?
Yes.
What is that?
It appears to be the seized Lexus SUV.
And now let's look at the timestamp. What time is that?
5:50:47 PM.
So in about, according to your testimony, in about 5 seconds, the time jumped from before the SUV was in the Sallyport to about 5:50 PM after the SUV had already arrived and is now situated in the Sallyport, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
The time frame that we just saw earlier of about 5:35, 5:36 or so with you and, with the tow truck driver and Michael Proctor in the video. That is not in this video. It's not captured in this video, was it?
It did not present itself. No.
It did not present itself. It did not present itself. Look, I think that camera was working and they've got rid of that footage. They've got rid of the footage of the SUV being driven into the Sallyport, Proctor messing about with it, breaking off pieces, and we're back at 5:50. Unbelievable. I don't know, anybody can believe these people. And anybody can believe these people. All right, we're going to some rebuttal now, or redirection. I always call it rebuttal and it's not, it's redirection. All right, I just looked at my timestamp and I've immediately forgot it. 6:50. 6:50. All right, so we're right at the end of the rebuttal here. And we've got him showing a few little taillight pieces, bits of debris in a little tin, We've got a piece of tail light that Proctor found. So he found some pieces. Proctor found some pieces. All right. How could you miss that? Like, how could you miss that? If you were looking around that area, remember, it's only a very small area. How could you miss that? But oh no, there was so much snow and they didn't excavate. They just waited for the polar ice cap to recede and these pieces just present themselves. Okay. All right. What else do we have? The thing I want to get to though is the genes. The genes. All right, listen to this absolute bull crap about the genes.
Of taillight on February 3rd. Did you consider their location, not only where on the lawn they were, but about the depth of where they were found?
Oh, this is
Yes, I
bullshit.
did.
And basically,
The gene's coming up, but I've just played it like a minute early to listen to the crap about the tail light.
on the items that you found on February 3rd, how close to the ground were they?
They were on the ground, or in the instance with the hat, it was frozen almost in a solid piece to the grass blades, to the ground.
The hat, well, that probably had been there since they dragged John O'Keefe's body. But of course, the taillight pieces are going to be on the ground. As I said previous, they're not going to, like, as the snow melts, they're not going to be suspended in air, are they? They're going to fall to the ground as the snow melts because gravity. Dear God.
And was that significant to you, how the hat was found?
Yes, it was.
I could have 99C. And could we now have 99D? Beneath the hat on the left side next to the ruler, what do you see?
Yellow grass and a leaf, I believe, a brown leaf.
Was that of importance to you?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I can believe that's been there.
I may approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Right, and that's not been planted.
And if you could turn the lights on and take that down, please. Thank you, sir. I'm approaching with exhibit 85.
Oh, this
Could you
is
take that out of
hilarious.
the bag, please, sir?
This is ridiculous.
Yes, sir.
Can you look at the back of the pants, please? As part of your investigation and the significance of the evidence, did you consider any debris on the back of the pants as part of your analysis?
Yes, the grass stains on the left.
Objection.
The appearance of
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
the staining that's taken place or had taken place on these jeans was significant in the fact that it appears to be green and grass stain.
What did that suggest to you as part of your evaluation of your investigation and the decisions that you made after?
It suggests that Mr. O'Keefe impacted the grass area with his left glute, transferring green staining onto his pants.
Okay, all right. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, so now we've got John O'Keefe being hit, right, sideswiped by the right rear tail light, hitting his right arm, leaving absolutely no damage other than some scratches and some bite wounds because SUVs bite. No broken bones. At the very least, if it had impacted him in the right arm, at the positioning where those scratches were, it would have broken his elbow for sure. It would have broken his elbow and it would have dislocated his shoulder. But we're led to believe that John O'Keefe then pirouetted through the air, and I was expecting him to have landed on his head, because the thing that actually killed him was the severe bashing in of the rear of his skull. So I anticipated that he would die by landing on his head after this pirouette in the air and smashing his head on the hard ground. But no, because now we're learning that the pirouette subjected him to landing on his left arse cheek. Well, that left arse cheek will break his fall. So how on earth now would he have a smashed in skull? Because he'd land on his arse. So you've broken your fall, you've broken the impact. So even if he fell backwards, after that, landed on his arse and he fell backwards, he's still not going to land, now the fall is broken, with any such relevant impact to smash his skull in. Dear God. And if you landed with that impact on your left arse cheek, right, you're going to have severe bruising. So was his back bruised? Was his arse bruised? You're going to have bruising. You're going to have maybe even the little bones at the bottom of your spine, sacrum, that area. You're going to have some fractures there. But no, none of that. Did they test those staining? Did they test it for grass? I'm quite sure it is grass stain. It looks like grass stain to me. Was it tested? Who knows? But that is more characteristic of being dragged. Those are drag marks. They're pulling him along with his shoulders, and in his arse, he's dragging along the ground. That's how his shoe came off and how his hat came off. It wasn't tested. You know, I know it wasn't tested because we learn it wasn't tested. We learn it wasn't tested. I'm being facetious, but no, it wasn't tested. But by the looks of it, it does look like grass stain to me. It does. But the fact that it wasn't tested in a murder trial is completely insane. Completely insane. All right, we're going to go now to Jackson's Recross, and we're going to listen to some of this. I'm going to go to 7:10. I'm not going to listen to it all. We're going to listen to some of it though, because it just shows how absolutely pathetic this man is. He spent, what, 2 days, two and a half days on the stand. I'm so glad that he's not coming back today. I'm so glad. But let's listen from here.
Not long. I can finish this up if you give me 10 minutes.
So it's now 4 o'clock, right? And Bev turns into a pumpkin. If she's not home by 4:30, she turns into a pumpkin. So she's rushing him. The jury, however, want to stay. They want to listen. I mean, they only started at 10 o'clock. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why they started at 10 today, because it wasn't like they had like a motions hearing first. Like she said, oh, if you need me, I'll be around nearly 10. So nothing happened. It wasn't like they were having a motions hearing and, you know, they just thought, well, we'll bring the jury in an hour later. No. So for no apparent reason, Bev needs to start late, but yet she still finishes at 4. But she's rushing him now, but he says he needs 10 minutes. The jury want to stay. Look at Paul smirking. At least he has to sit in the back. He's still on his naughty chair.
All right. Jurors are saying yes. Is it okay with all the jurors? We usually break at 4.
I don't want to overstep. I'm happy to stop now, but I think I can get it finished.
I'd like to finish with this witness and not have to bring it back again tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate the accommodation. You're aware that, according to the tape, John O'Keefe left about 10 minutes after Brian Higgins, or so.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay. You would agree, as a homicide investigator, not every death starts off as an intended murder, correct?
I will agree to that.
Sometimes a fight could go wrong, and you intend to fight and duke it out. Something goes wrong, something goes south, someone dies, correct?
Objection.
Why is that an objection? What are you objecting to, Hank? I think that's exactly what happened. As I said yesterday, I think Brian Higgins, he was on one, he was hot, he was ready to go. He probably would have fought John O'Keefe right there if he, he had his own way. And Brian Albert probably said, "No, bring him back to my place. You can hash it out there." Not intended to kill him. I don't think Brian Albert and Brian Higgins had a plot to kill him. But you can hash it out there. You can reassert your dominance and, regain your masculinity at my house, behind closed doors. So Brian Higgins, he's getting John there. He's keen to get John there. When John's not arrived by 12:20, he texts him and asks him if he's coming. So, he's just raring to go. So as soon as John got there, I think the confrontation happened right there. I don't think there was any pleasantries. I think he got to that property, whether he went in through one of the front doors or whether he went through into the backyard, as I think he might have gone through the backyard. But they were there. Brian Higgins was there. Brian Albert witnessed it. Chloe got involved. And the rest is, sadly, history.
Something that people want to be on the scope, so move on.
You were asked on redirect examination about taillight pieces that were found by the CERT team. I want to ask you real quick about that. Your testimony was you recall that the CERT team found a large piece of red taillight material during their initial search. Is that correct?
That's my recollection, yes.
Okay. You had a debriefing with the CERT team, correct?
Not the CERT team. I had a debrief with the members of our unit at the Canton PD conference room. I do not have a memory of the CERT team being there.
Of course you don't. You don't have a memory of very much. Now, for those not following, the CERT team were those 7 from the Massachusetts State Police who went and did some kind of grid search thing on the evening of the 29th. And they found the first few taillight pieces and the shoe.
Do you recall ever being told or informed that the CERT team actually recovered maybe 5 or 6 pieces, maybe 7 pieces of small plastic material in addition to the shoe? As opposed to a large piece of red taillight?
The memory that stands out to me that I have is that there was a large piece of plastic recovered. It wasn't a shard. It was significant enough that, shown on the photograph taken by Detective Lieutenant Tully.
And do you recall that the CERT team, or were you ever informed that the CERT team found those, according to the CERT team, within inches of one another, within about a 2-foot square radius?
I don't have a memory of where they found them exactly. I wasn't there.
Of course you don't. Of course you don't have a memory. But the CERT team actually did GPS track those. They put a GPS tag on each one of those pieces. So at least there is something that would show us. We didn't see it though, did we? Why did we not see that when Connor Keith testified? We didn't see that, did we? We didn't see where those pieces were found. Which I don't remember anyway, I'm sure. We've never seen a diagram of where any of these pieces was found. And of course, these later pieces that he found and that Proctor found, they didn't even bother to photograph them. We've got no evidence whatsoever that they were ever there, let alone where they were found in relation to the flagpole. Just believe us that we found them there. There's no photographs. There's nothing. There's nothing. When he says, oh, they were on the ground, well, we've no evidence that they were ever there, let alone where they were. Oh, dear God.
Okay. You were asked about the taillight. You were shown a photograph of the taillight.
Where are John's socks? John's socks were on his feet. On the autopsy photos, he had his socks on.
Where almost the entirety of that lens material is missing. It's gone, correct?
Yes.
And you remember talking to Jen McCabe originally, interviewing her within days of this incident happening, correct?
It was the 29th we interviewed.
That day.
That day, yes.
Do you remember her saying that the taillight was cracked/broken?
She communicated that over the phone to Michael Proctor, which was then documented later on in the interview report from earlier.
Surprised you can remember that, given that it's concerning Michael Proctor, given that the day before this, he was struggling to even say Michael Proctor's name.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it was documented within the interview report.
Okay. And in that interview report, it doesn't say the entire lens cap of that taillight is gone, correct?
Correct. The report does not say that, no.
And she didn't describe that, did she?
No, they didn't even photograph all the pieces. The ones that he found, he testified, so the day before this, that he didn't photograph them, even with his phone. Didn't photograph them.
I don't know what she described to Michael Proctor over the phone.
You pulled out a pair of jeans belonging to Mr. O'Keefe just a second ago.
Yes.
And you noted that on his, what would be his left rear pocket, there was a stain.
Yes.
You said that was an apparent grass stain, and it was green.
Based on my observation here holding them, that's what it appeared. Yes. Maybe dirt, maybe other substances.
That was my question. Did you seek to analyze what that discoloration was from, or have caused that to be analyzed by the crime lab or anybody else?
The genes were processed. I don't know what their protocol is to analyze it. They process those genes. There's pieces missing from cuttings and stuff like
Understood. So as you sit here, you
All right, so I can understand that he might not have knowledge of every single test that was done, but would you not know the results of the testing? Would you not? Is Hank going to call someone from the lab to tell us what those stains were specifically? What happened to John's socks after hospital? Don't know. Presume they went into evidence. I don't know. But they were definitely on his body at the autopsy.
have no evidence at all that those are grass stains, correct?
Strictly my experience of knowing grass stains and observing it.
Could be dirt,
Could be.
could be oil or grease.
I don't know about that, but
They look brown. Stains look brown, don't they?
there's different parts of the stain. Some has brown, some has green, different parts of it.
Could you get, in your experience, stains on the back of pants from being dragged?
I've never dragged anybody, so from my experience, I can't tell you.
I didn't ask if you never dragged anybody. You've never murdered anybody.
He has no knowledge of the basics of life. Like, if you're saying that you've got a grass stain on your left arse cheek of your jeans because of the impact, which leaves absolutely no signs on the body of an impact on that area, and absolutely 100% would break your fall, and therefore even if your head did hit the deck after that, the likelihood of you getting your skull smashed in is decreased manyfold. Like, if you literally landed on your head, I can understand how you get a fractured skull, but not if your arse has impacted the ground first, because that's taken all the force out. And then even if you fell back, you're not going to have the same amount of force that you would have if you'd not had that break fall. Dear God, man. And have you ever fallen on your arse? Right, it's painful. And if you fell on your ass with force, you're going to break. You're going to be bruised up, and you're going to break those little pieces in the bottom of your spine. Dear God.
Either, but you're a homicide investigator, right? Did you get those things from being dragged? It's just a common sense question.
My common sense dictates that it was not a drag, a mark, because it would have linear characterizations, and it would be both buttocks that are engaged in contact with the ground while being dragged.
Not necessarily. Linear, whatever. Well, you've just said you've no experience of dragging anybody, so how do you know? No, if you're holding someone up by the shoulders and their arse is the bit on the ground and you're just dragging them using their shoulders, they could be weighted over to one side. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have staining like in a linear pattern or even in an equal pattern. Come on now.
He's been dragged and he has something in his pocket, or being dragged at an angle. Dragged through a crease spot. It was only on the left. What about all those possibilities?
And I want to know how that rip happened in his jeans pocket. Like, was that done by the lab? And was that done after, basically, after he was found? Or was that rip there when he was found?
Again, my opinion, common sense dictates it was not the case.
You've no idea. Common sense. Go away. You can't use common sense. Objection. Objection. Ridiculous.
But you certainly didn't take any action to investigate forensically what those stains actually were.
I did not know.
By the way, can you lose a shoe from being dragged?
It depends. I guess you can, depending on how loose it is.
He's got a face I just want to punch. I'm so glad I don't have to look at his face today. I'm so glad. I don't know who the witnesses are today. I have no idea. I'm just so glad it's not him. Anybody but him. Very punchable face.
Said that there was no information that you had regarding Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe having any animosity toward each other prior to January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
But you did, we talked about, now let's talk about on January 29th.
Yeah, I better hope that the jury are not too familiar with gravity. True.
In your experience, does drinking alcohol increase the likelihood or increase the possibility of getting into an altercation?
I would say, in my experience, in my opinion, the alcohol could become a social lubricant and exacerbate emotions. But to speak in a definitive form here, I can't.
You've heard of beer muscles.
The vast majority of physical assaults happen under the influence of alcohol. You can go and look that up anywhere you like. And I'm talking about physical assaults in the home as well as physical assaults outside. Alcohol. I think in some studies up to like 90% of crimes investigated. Depends what study you look at. But the majority of physical assaults happen under the influence of alcohol. And as a homicide cop, as any cop would know, absolutely, alcohol reduces inhibitions. And if you're feeling annoyed, it turns into the worst thing in the world if you're under the influence of alcohol. I don't know why he's being... I mean, he didn't say, no, it doesn't. At least there's that.
That's a common phrase, right?
Never heard that before, no.
Beer guts? Ever heard that one?
I've heard of beer gut, but not beer guts.
Having the guts to walk up to someone you might not otherwise walk up to in a bar because you've had too much to drink. Is that what beer muscles could mean?
I would say maybe liquid courage.
Even better. What does liquid courage mean?
Giving you courage that truly shouldn't be there.
That you might not otherwise have if you weren't drinking.
There we go. Liquid courage. I can go with that. So Brian Higgins is he's all tanked up with liquid courage. And Chris Albert tries to calm him down, gets nowhere, throws his hands up, walks away, leaving Brian Higgins and Brian Albert to go back to 34 Fairview. And John O'Keefe arrives. Brian Higgins, all tanked up with liquid courage, does something that is incredibly regrettable, ended someone's life. However that happened, whether it was a hit over the head or whether it was a confrontation that ended up with John O'Keefe falling and him dying, whichever it was, Brian Higgins was the instigator and the rest of them panicked. That's exactly what I think happened.
Yeah. Yes.
Can we wrap this up, Mr. Jackson?
I'm trying, Judge.
Can you wrap this up, Mr. Jackson? Dear God, it's not even, it must be about 4:10 by now. It's not late. The jury want to stay. Have we ever learnt why Bev needs court to finish at 4? I mean, I can understand sometimes the court might finish at 4 because you finished a witness and maybe the next witness isn't going to be quick. Therefore, you might as well just start fresh tomorrow. Like when I was a juror, we finished on average, I would say around 4:30. Like I think the earliest we finished maybe was just before 4:30. Maybe once or twice we finished closer to 4 than 4:30. And I think the latest we finished maybe was about 5:30. Like the judge was very, if a witness, to prevent a witness needing to come back tomorrow, he wouldn't stop. He would let the questioning go on for as long as it needed. And he told us right from the jump that that's how he operates his court. That, he'll some days you're going to end up getting out early. Some days you might have to stay till 5:30, maybe 6. I don't think we ever had to stay till 6. I think the latest we stayed was about 5:30. But it's not like you're watching the clock as a juror, unless it's really, really boring, like the testimony is really boring. It's not like you're watching the clock every minute. Why does she finish at 4 every day? And like she's precise with it as well. She's not flexible at all, no. Like lunch has to be at a certain time, and then you've got to finish at a certain time.
I won't be much longer. You had evidence that Brian Higgins had been drinking most of the afternoon and evening that or most of the night, that evening and night, at the time that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed walked into the waterfall, correct?
I had information that Brian Higgins had returned from a police officer.
Will she allow jurors to deliberate after 4? I think from trial 1, I think they left like at 4-ish. So they did like court days. If I remember rightly, I might be thinking wrongly, but I think it was regular court days. I think they left at 4. Lunch at 1 p.m. is a union requirement, apparently. What, dead on 1? So if you had your lunch at 12:45 or at 1:10, would the union make everyone strike? It doesn't have to be exactly at 1, does it? Could it not be a few minutes earlier or a few minutes later? As long as you get your lunch break, maybe during that hour. I don't know. But she's very rigid with it. And I don't mind so much for lunch, but it's this quick, like, and she didn't even give Hank Brennan the opportunity to come back and make his final comments that he's been doing.
Officer's funeral, and then went to Waterfall after he changed clothes and took a shower.
Went to the hillside before he went to Waterfall, started drinking there, correct?
I don't have an independent memory of that, no.
But you did, at the time, you didn't pull the tape at the time, you didn't pull the tape at CPD that we saw with Brian Higgins on the phone at 1:30 in the morning, correct? You didn't have that information.
I'm sorry, can you?
At
Can you
the time,
give me a reference when at
Sure.
the time?
At the beginning of your investigation, January 29th, and probably the next, let's call it a couple months.
Mhm.
You did not have that information, correct?
No, we did not.
And you didn't seek that information from CPD at that time.
Yeah,
No,
anything's
I had
possible.
no information that he
Anything's possible.
went
with
there.
NA.
Okay? And you didn't extract his phone, correct?
That's correct.
And finally, you indicated that you were asked on redirect examination, did you have any evidence that John actually went into the home? Did you ever interview Trooper Guarino during the course of your investigation at any time?
Interview him?
Talk to him
No,
about his extraction of John O'Keefe's phone and any of the data that came off of his phone.
no,
You did not realize that Trooper Guarino had information that John O'Keefe took 36 steps covering a distance of some 84 feet that would have placed Mr. O'Keefe inside the residence at 12:32:16.
Objection.
Did
Why?
you have any information?
Why? Why is that? Why is that an objection, and why does she sustain it? All he has to do was say, "No, I'm not. I don't know that." And look at his face, smug little bastard. Oh. Yeah, John O'Keefe walked 84 feet. 84 feet after the collision supposedly happened. The phone moved for 20 seconds and covered 84 feet. That would take you from the curb, from the flagpole area, into the house or into the backyard.
From Trooper Guarino about steps that were logged on Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
no, I did not.
Is that it, Mr. Jackson?
Say
You said
what?
finally, that's what I'm wondering.
Is that it? Is that it? God.
May I have just a moment?
Yes.
I'm trying to wrap this up. I only have a couple more things, but I may be able to finish it with one question. As you sit here now, are you aware of whether or not there's evidence that John O'Keefe, the phone describes John O'Keefe's phone taking 36 steps, covering a distance of about 84 feet at 12:32 and 16 seconds on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
Objection.
Can you answer that? Are you aware of that?
I am not, Your Honor.
Okay, the answer is,
The answer was,
No, I'm not aware of that.
all right. Trace, I appreciate you staying late, so Trooper Bukhenik, we do not have to return.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So
Thank you.
folks, those-
So she made the executive decision that he doesn't have to come back tomorrow. So she's just so needing to leave. So why does she need to leave so suddenly? She rushes Jackson, and then Hank Brennan, who she's been allowing to do redirect. No, he's not allowed. Happy hour. Yeah, it's happy hour. Well, maybe she's in need of an intervention. They're all in need of an intervention. I've never seen a group of people who are so dependent on alcohol to have a good time. Dear God. Yeah, they were all drinking. Yeah, probably Brian Albert and Higgins at driving from New York. I bet they were all drinking, and they're probably very functional because they're so used to it. Anyhow, all right, I'll leave it there. So no idea who we're going to have next. I'm looking forward to the accident reconstruction people. I think that Hank Brennan will put them on last. I might be completely wrong, but if I was him, I'd put them on last. I want the medical stuff to be done. It doesn't look like he's going to be calling like a bunch of people from the waterfall, like Lally did last year. And there was absolutely no need for that anyway. So I'm glad he's not doing that. Don't know how many more witnesses, like, is he going to call Higgins? Is he going to call Brian Albert? I kind of don't think he will. But who knows? Who knows? I have no idea. No idea how he's playing this. But we're going to find out in about an hour and a quarter. So I'll leave it there for today. I'll be back tomorrow to cover day 15. And let's see what tomorrow brings. So thank you all for joining me. Thanks as always to the mods. It's a glorious day here in Northern England. It's got a nice breeze to it though, so it's warm. It's a little bit too warm for me, but there's a really nice breeze. So it's a nice day, really nice day. But enjoy your day wherever you are, and I'll see you very soon. And if you're following Lily and Jack Sullivan's case, I've already released a video over on Michelle After Dark, so you can go and check that out as well. All right, I'm out of here. Bye, guys.